Good afternoon and welcome to the Rush. Welcome to the Rush, folks. It is Friday. It is a good Friday. Well, it's not Good Friday, but it is a Good Friday in Georgetown, and we'll be discussing some issues. We'll be having some conversations with former Minister of Public Telecommunication, Ms. Kathy Hughes. But, folks, let's start it the right way. Let's unpack. We are back. We are back. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the Rush. Day 330 streaks. We are watch them. Good afternoon. Let us know where you're joining us from. Somebody saying no song. Are you hearing me out there at home, wherever you are? It looks like I'm getting some at my end. But let's go, folks. Good afternoon. Let us know where you're joining us from. It is a wonderful Friday afternoon. And we are going to be unpacking some credible and valid information. Monsterrat BVI Tortola. Welcome. Thank you very much for telling us that, we're hearing you. Thank you very much, Benjamin and others, for confirming that you're hearing me loud and clear. Folks, we're following a number of information, a number of things in the media, and we want to keep you bring you up to date with what is happening. I want to talk about this story first, but before we go to that, before we have our conversation, we'll be joined by former Minister of Public Telecommunications today, Ms. Kathy Hughes, to discuss a wide range of issues. But before we get to that, we'll talk about what is in the news. What is in the news right now? Let me just get to it. Let me share some of what we're following in news. Before we share that, I don't want not to give you your shout out. Canada is in the house. New Jersey is in the house. Let us know where you're joining us from before we start unpacking the credible and valid information, folks. Let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon. Let me see. USA, logged in. Michael Street, New Zealand. Romeo Henry, you're all the way in New Zealand. What time is it over there in New Zealand? Wow. Good afternoon to all of you. Atlanta, St. Martin, Hopetown, Brooklyn. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, folks. We are happy to have you here. Raleigh, North Carolina. I have relatives in Raleigh, North Carolina. Grenada. Folks in Grenada, I hope you're going to the cricket. I hope you are attending the cricket. Saturday, we have game number 5, West Indies versus South Africa, the 5th T20 International. So we're watching that. Boxing, Miami, Brooklyn, lots of people. Antigua and Barbuda in the house. I think that cricket is coming there soon. I believe that Australia is coming. I stand corrected if I'm incorrect, but I believe that Barbados, Antigua will have some cricket soon. Port Kaituma, good afternoon to all of you folks. Liberty Avenue, Queens. Liberty Avenue, Queens. Thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. Folks, I know we want to say good afternoon to everybody, and we're begging you, of course, to share the live stream. Share the live stream so we can get our message across all of the platforms. I'm going to try and share on my end here. Let me try and share on my. Good afternoon and welcome to the Rush. Right, sorry about that. I'm going to be sharing on my end before we start unpacking this afternoon. I'm going to be sharing. Let me go share to some other pages. We are live on YouTube also. For those persons who like to look at us on YouTube, give us a subscribe. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we're on again, folks. That's all we're asking. Hit the subscribe button. Let me see what else is happening here. Hold on. Oh, we're already cross-post a number of places. I don't need to do that. All of the places we share to. Right. Let's unpack, folks. Let's go into some of the news. Let's go into some of the news this afternoon. Let me see what is happening in the news. If I can share. I'm keeping an eye on this story. Of course, we had that press conference yesterday, folks. And out of that press conference, we heard that a number of persons have written statements of alibi, right? Purporting, of course, to say that they would have been in this location with Mr. Gladstone Henry. One of the persons picked up. A number of persons would have sworn that, listen, these three young men were home with us. Now, what do we see here? The story getting thicker, folks. The police have now said, you know what? We are seeking to contradict these alibis provided by these members of the public, right? They have now said, you know what? We are going to try, and let me go through the story because it's quite interesting. Quite interesting. If we go down in the story, 9 of the 10 witnesses in that story who placed the murder accused Gladstone Henry Jr. at his number 3 West Coast Burbies home at the time of the 17-year-old Harry Singh, at the time 17-year-old Harry Singh was killed in the back dam, are now being pursued by the Guyana Police Force for allegedly attempting to prevent the course of justice. This is where we are, folks. This is where we are. It is quite interesting to see these developments happening. Quite interesting. And we'll follow this story. I'm hoping to get Mr. Nigel Hughes. We have his wife coming on a little later on in the program so we can talk politics. But we're going to be watching this story with a keen eye. Going to be watching it with a keen eye. Right? But let's just take this in. This is quite a development. 9 of the 10 persons who claim to have seen this young man at home at the time of this murder are now being sought by the police. So I don't know what you think about this story. I want to get some reactions to this story. I want to get and John says confusion. More and more confusion. Good afternoon again to those persons joining us from all over the world. Good afternoon to you, right? We want to say a pleasant good afternoon to you. And let us know, of course, where you're joining us from in the comment section. We're continuing to follow this particular story. Other things happening in the news, folks. We know that the Public Accounts Committee, and we're going to talk about this Public Accounts Committee a little later down as we speak with Miss Cathy Hughes. But we know that the Public Accounts Committee, the PPP, unilaterally, in an unprecedented move, removed David Patterson as the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. Today, the Public Accounts Committee has now a new chair. Mr. German Figuera, MP German Figuera, is now the new chair of the Public Accounts Committee, and I want to bring that story. I want to bring that to you, and I want you to hear what he said. Quite interesting as we break down some of the news of the day before we get into our conversation, the political conversation with Miss Cathy Hughes. Right? Let's go to this story. Where is it? Patterson's removal is no victory. Work of the PAC will be doubled, the new PAC chair, German Figuera, says. I like the fact that he said this. And let's go down in this story. The region number 10 member of parliament, who is serving in his second term as an MP, said Patterson's removal from the Public Accounts Committee chair is no victory, as they was grave miscarriage of justice when the government used its majority to vote him out of the position. He warned that the government has now put a dangerous precedent in motion. Jermaine Figueira is now the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. Of course, we know we were following that story with a keen eye what was happening there as the PPP removed Mr. Patterson. But folks, our show today is going to be a protracted one, a shortened one, because we're just going to be having this conversation, and I know I had a number of other things lined up for today, but we're going to be having that conversation. I want to ask former minister and member of parliament some questions, and I want to have that conversation. I want to pick her brain. So stay tuned. Right? Stay tuned. I'm reading some of the comments from YouTube. It's quite funny to see some of the rules in the comment section. But we are going to be continuing with our work. We don't need to bother with them. Right? And folks, yes, I know you're concerned about those stories. I know you're concerned about a number of other things in the public sphere, but you'll have an opportunity. I want you to ask your questions. If you have any questions for the MP, former Minister of Public Telecommunications, let us know. Folks, as we talk about our guest that is supposed to be coming on, let me say this to you, that as we are going to have Ms. Cathy Hughes on, and this is my take this afternoon. I spoke about it before, but I want to speak about it again. I want to speak about the fact that this PPP government took over this country in the heart of COVID. And one of the first things that they did was to remove or to disband the Ministry of Public Telecommunications. Why is that significant, folks? Why is that significant? It is significant because in COVID, children are home. Teachers have to teach remotely. The Ministry of Public Telecommunications was providing free internet to a number of persons, a number of communities. They were providing tablets and laptops to those persons on the privileged persons. These were things that are supposed to be expanded in conjunction with the Ministry of Education, given this new dispensation, given the fact that teachers themselves would have been struggling to find credit, to find internet, some of them to find devices. One would have expected that the PPP government would have seen the importance of a Ministry of Public Telecommunications and expanded that program, or those programs and plans that they had, to ensure that people are all connected. So children, they are many hundreds of children. If you ask the Ministry of Education, they will tell you. They will give you the numbers. Hundreds of children who have not attended school face-to-face or virtually in over a year. And many of them simply because they do not have access to internet or a device. Do not have access to internet or a device. Remember, education is not a privilege. Education is a right. It is a right. Children are supposed to have access to education. And the changing of the position, the changing of their circumstances should have allowed them. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about all things politics with my guest this afternoon. Right? I still call her minister. She's still Minister Hughes to me. It is left in me, and she would be the first to tell you, Randy, I have another name. But I will still refer to her as Minister Hughes. Uh, I worked very closely with her, and she has become like family now. So I want to introduce to you former Minister of Public Telecommunication and Member of Parliament representing the APNU AFC, the Honorable Catherine Hughes, to our program. Minister Hughes, welcome to the Rush this afternoon.
Thank you, Randy. Good to be here and to be chatting with you as usual. I
Yes.
missed you.
Yes, you see, it's a while since we've spoken. So,
I know. I know.
yeah. Right? So thank you very much. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. As I said to my viewers before, I had a number of things lined up, but
Hmm.
I think I'm going to take the next 25 minutes or so, the opportunity to pick your brain on a number of political issues. As a member of parliament and someone who has been very vocal, I listened to your presentation in parliament on
Hmm.
issues concerning democracy and the way things are going in Guyana. And I
Yeah.
want us to have that conversation. I want us to start there. My
Mhm.
first question to you would be: do you
Mhm.
feel confident, given the last 334 days of this government, that you feel confident as a Guyanese, not even as a parliamentarian, as a foreigner, as a Guyanese, that we are heading in the right direction?
And you mean generally in the country?
Generally.
Well, Randy, what I find most disturbing is that we seem to be not stressing the cohesion, the fact that Guyana has this wonderful natural resource called oil that can change our lives, could improve the country, that
Hmm.
we seem to be focusing on persecution and prosecution of persons that think differently, that don't support the current government.
Yeah.
So we're not healing, there's no reconciliation. There's a lot of animosity, there's a lot of vindictiveness, there's a lot of hate. And as we know, since 2018, when the no confidence motion was placed in our parliament successfully, since then we've seen an increase in racial intolerance. And that I find quite disturbing. History has shown us that in any society where close to 50% of the population feels that they don't have a stake in the country, it takes you down a dangerous path. And
Yeah.
we've seen that in places like Serbia, we've seen it in Rwanda, we've seen it in South Africa. So I don't think we're heading in the right direction. We're not working together. In fact, we're deliberately attacking people that don't look like you, don't sound like you, that don't have the same position. And
Yeah.
it's very undemocratic, as you know.
Yeah. And as you say that, as you say that, I'm reminded of your presentation in Parliament where you quoted Nelson Mandela, and as you mentioned South Africa there, and
Yes.
and you said something quite interesting. If after Nelson Mandela was elected president, he went on this vengeance campaign, so to speak,
Yep.
then the country couldn't have survived. They wouldn't have been where they are right now. And it really hit a chord with me, because I look around and I see what is happening in our society, and I see missed opportunities.
Yep.
I see many missed opportunities to let that healing begin.
Hmm.
I want how what is your take on that? How do we as a people, notwithstanding we have a government in place who seems to be heading in a direction, but how would we as a people uh kind of move away from what we see is happening?
So Randy, I think it starts with the leadership.
Yeah.
And my father usually always used to say to me and my siblings and I, that somebody has to be the bigger person. And I think it's a very important concept. You will always get into situations of conflict and violence if somebody doesn't decide to be the bigger person, to walk away when walking away is necessary. But in the case of a government that has to function and rule in the interest of all Guyanese, then you have a special role to play. You have to be the bigger person. And I want to give you some specific examples. The bigger person, the government, the president, is the one that, for example, when you see so many reports of people that claim that they did not get their COVID cash grant, you would have already set up a place, a location outside the office of the president, some ministry, whatever. And you would have put a series of persons there because you want to demonstrate that there's no way that there's any kind of discrimination, that there was some error in why every Guyanese family was not able to get that COVID cash grant. And so you would have had ads flooding all the newspapers, the radio, everything, saying to people, if you had a problem with your COVID cash grant, come down to Main Street, come down to whatever street. We are committed to sorting you out. None of those messages exist.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
problems that we have seen also in so many other areas, that kind of approach. Just the other day, and we've heard it at the highest levels, and I was thinking about this. We continue to hear and Gail Teixeira embarrassed all Guyanese by the other day responding to the American senators by saying to them that until the government, the opposition, says that they support the government, they're not engaging. That is total nonsense. Total nonsense. Up to
Mm-hmm.
now, the biggest
Yeah.
democracy, in the biggest democracy, the USA, President Trump has not conceded. He
Yeah.
has not conceded. What he
Yeah.
did say is that the transition needed to take place. So he
Yeah.
acknowledged that there's a different government. We have
Yeah.
acknowledged that there's a different government and we're not in there. But
Yeah.
it's not about liking you and having to concede. Regardless of how we feel about you, you still need to engage us because guess what? People forget, and maybe the PPP government forgets, that 217 people, according to the flawed results, 217,000,
Yeah.
close to 49% of the population said, we didn't vote for you. And that
Yeah.
is a very large amount of people that did not vote for you. And so the bigger person would have been Mr. President Biden, who every step of the way is trying to bring people on board. Let's put aside our differences. Let's move forward. Let's engage. Let me hear what the problems are with the opposition. How are they feeling? I want everybody to be part of this one Guyana, new Guyana. We don't see any of that. We do
Mm-hmm.
not see any of that. So we know that we're on the road to disaster. I was thinking of this last night in the context of this very unfortunate situation with the family of Isaiah Henry.
Yeah.
In any other country, Randy, the police would be calling them all the time because this is such a difficult situation. When we heard that a young man was murdered so brutally, two of them, three of them subsequently, but
Mm-hmm.
for the initial two, to the extent where you got an X carved out on your forehead,
Mm-hmm.
that was painful, not to African Guyanese. That was painful and unacceptable to all Guyanese, as it should have been. And the president did the right thing. He went out there and he said, no, we got to sort this out. So
Yeah.
imagine the police force should have assigned one person who every single day, this is
In
what happens
contact.
in other countries,
Mm-hmm.
calls up the family and just out of politeness, how you doing? We working on this thing. We ain't get anywhere, but we working on it. This has happened. That has happened. How could you have a family that is so continuously damaged and brutalized by this country and this administration say that they don't get any updates?
Yeah. And
It's
you know,
it's
before
sick.
be, before we come off of this, I just read the headline to those viewers that the police are now seeking to contradict the alibis presented by 9 out of and basically charge them with preventing the course of justice, something to that extent.
No,
This is what we see.
right. And what is so funny is that they put everything on this one person videotaping that was not videotaping. There were other family members there.
Videotaping.
There were other people streaming the what was going on at the postmortem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do we think in this day and age there's only one person? But
Yeah.
let me tell you what I find is most dangerous about that, Randy. And we saw it in the incident with um, a member of parliament, Tabitha Sarabo,
Yeah.
when she said that she had been abused, physically assaulted by, that low life on the other side.
Yes. Yes.
Now, what was interesting is that there's a very dangerous perception. There were two eyewitnesses.
Mm-hmm.
But I was most disturbed when the comment was made that the eyewitnesses were members of the APNU AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're saying is that unless the eyewitness happened to be a member of the PPP or the cleaning staff or somebody else, there's no validity to their word.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you put that through the whole concept of law, that you're now saying that because these people are relatives,
Mm-hmm.
their testimony has no value. It's a
Yeah.
dangerous precedent that does not exist in law.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the world do you say, well, let me check who the eyewitness is, you know? And it's not about what they report they saw that the police would then receive and investigate and report back on, but you're going to start to question the person,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so we are traveling down a very, very dangerous road, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Before we go too far, I want to take you back to something you brought up, and this has to do with the this idea that the Minister of Governance, I don't know what was her position, Gail Teixeira, keeps positing about the APNUFC must recognize them before any talks happen. And as you pointed out very clearly, the US, the bastion of democracy, the large, well, not the largest, but people look at the US,
Yes, the
the
bastion
past,
of
the
democracy,
immediate
I
past
think.
president, and you said that he hasn't conceded. I will take it even further and say that he has openly, on many occasions, said that he was cheated.
Yes, yeah. So it
He
doesn't matter.
claimed.
And Randy, we
Mhm,
forget. We have such short memories.
mhm,
Mr. Barrett Jagdeo, for a very long time, I don't think he's ever conceded that he
mhm.
lost the 2015 election.
Right, because
You remember when he kept saying that he didn't, that we lost, that they won, and blah blah blah
and they
blah blah
filed a
blah.
petition.
And then, exactly, and then they said, then he changed his tune and started saying that they only lost by 4 or 5,000 votes,
Mhm,
and they were coming for those votes.
mhm.
Well, guess what? I want to remind the people of Guyana that 2015 happened.
Yeah,
And guess what? 2025 could happen again.
right.
Because as a people, we showed in 2015 that we could remove a government. So
Yeah.
let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I will hasten to remind people also that it was the PPP who said that the AP and UFC was illegal and to chase them out and all manner of things.
Yes,
And
yes.
as you pointed out, Biden in America, even though Trump claims that he was cheated and he has not conceded, has taken all steps to ensure that the Republicans are included in governance. The
And are trying to
PPP,
work with them in the
right,
parliament, in their Senate and
right,
their Congress.
right. The
So
PPP,
Biden is the bigger person. The
yeah,
unfortunate thing in Guyana is we don't have anybody in the government that appears to be the bigger person that can do
yeah,
the right thing. And that's
yeah.
why I'm glad you reminded me about what I said about Nelson Mandela.
Mhm,
There's no place in the world where a black president didn't have enough justification to come out and go after every single white person that he felt had worked against him, that
mhm,
sent him to prison,
mhm.
the thousands of Africans, South Africans that were murdered, that were killed. I went to the museum in South Africa 3 years ago, and it's the most moving thing to go to. But this is where the Truth and Reconciliation hearings are what kept South Africa together. That they realized that, you know what? Even though we have a black majority government now, there's still white South Africans. So how do we put away our differences and move ahead? And
Mm-hmm.
that is what we need in Guyana right now. If not, there is going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people forget that Rwanda
Yeah.
was a real place when that happened. So you can think that because you refuse to give out radio license for decades, and you may have more radio stations, and you have more people pushing race hate, which was the basis of the attacks in Rwanda, there will come a time, we see it all over the world. It never
Yeah.
works. Nobody ever wins.
Yeah.
There will come a time when other people, ordinary people, will say, you know what, I had enough of this. And they will pick up their weapons.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges with terrorism today is that you don't know who the terrorist is.
Yeah.
There are
It's
enough indications. So that is why we don't want Guyana to go down that road.
yeah.
And the other area that the lack of camaraderie and working together shows how it has a negative effect is how we're battling COVID today, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
When we started the COVID task force, I sat in cabinet and we went to great lengths to say the PPP must be represented.
Mm-hmm.
They refused to be represented. And that's why I think when we had a new government, so much time was wasted because they had no information and no clue on what was going on. It actually backfired because they themselves started off by saying that it was politics and that there was no COVID. And this was part of APNU AFC starting to hold on to power. Just 2 days ago, I was on a program where people were asking pertinent questions about COVID and the vaccines. I was not in a position to answer because nobody in my party, nobody in the 49% of the population that we represent sits on that task force that can share up to date information. So the whole opposition waits like the rest of the country for the Minister of Health every evening. And he uses the same background. So when you see him, you don't know whether it's the same thing he said last night or a month ago. So half the time we ain't listening. They failed to do a proper marketing and PR campaign. That's why they have people not taking it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if we were part of the process, we would be able to answer all these concerns from firsthand information that's shared on the task force.
Yeah.
But you decide that you don't want us on the task force.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want us on any of the state boards. You forget that Article 13 of the Constitution talks about proper a democracy, representation by all peoples in Guyana, an inclusionary democracy. So when you shut us out of all these different things, this is what's going to happen. And we are talking and we're saying, quite a few of us have been vaccinated. We keep saying, I know it's a personal choice, but take your vaccine.
Yeah.
There's not much more we can do.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
in the hands of the government. And it's
Mm.
just the typical low life attitude that they got to find somebody to blame. So all the people that didn't take a vaccine is because of APNU AFC.
Yeah.
Although you have created so many questions
Yeah. I
about
find.
the vaccine that you haven't adequately answered for the people. And people are
Yeah.
suspicious.
Yeah. I find the excuse of the AP and UFC must recognize us before we talk with them or include them on state boards and any other thing as a frivolous cop out, and I think Guyanese see past it.
Of course.
It makes little sense. It makes little sense, and it just says to people that you don't want to do things on your own. You really don't want to include the opposition.
Right. So
Let, let's
don't include them. Don't include them, and you're gonna end up with problems like this COVID situation.
yeah, yeah. Let's move on. We have a few more minutes. This time really flies.
Yes, I know.
We have a few more minutes to go. I want to touch on this, what we have seen, this disturbing trend of the PVP, as Kemra Dramjatan, the leader of the AFC, would put it. and the leader of the opposition also, this breaking down of those guardrails of democracy.
Mhm.
One such instance we saw play out late night in Parliament, coming like a thief in the night to remove David Patterson
Yep.
without giving a reason, of course. And you articulated a number of similarities
Yes.
between David Patterson and the former head of the PAC, now president,
Yep.
Irfan Ali,
Yep.
and ask a simple question as to why.
Yep.
Why?
Hmm.
No reason. We saw that. We saw the Police Service Commission. We've seen the fact that they're not including us in the opposition on boards. How do we square this circle? How do we remedy this clear march towards an authoritarian regime or authoritarian
Well,
country? How do
well,
we remedy that?
Randy, what I will say is that I thought it was going to take longer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the PPP had would have managed the situations better, but when you consider the
Mm-hmm.
madness that has taken place in just about in 11 months, it's unbelievable. It's not
Yeah.
like if it took 2 years to get to this, everything has fallen apart, down to the
Mm-hmm.
fact that there's garbage all over the country. So the champion of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
once again, is the champion of the dirt,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
you see that all over the country. I mean, how could everything have fallen apart? But as you talk about the PAC, one of the things that I was, what I was pointing out is, and this is where you see a two-sidedness, to
Mm-hmm.
how they operate. Because Irfan Ali actually had 19 fraud charges brought
Yes.
against him. And when people forget what those charges are, as you know, I had in the parliament the document, the
Yeah.
official document from the Georgetown Magisterial Court, which,
But
as you know, they kept interrupting me, but they didn't want me to read.
I would
This is
love to hear that, and I'm sure our viewers would love to hear what
sure,
are these
sure.
charges and who
So
are involved.
exactly. So this is the first one I'm going to read quickly. And it says Muhammad Irfan Ali on Thursday, the 2nd of September 2010, at Georgetown in the Georgetown Magisterial District, County of Demerara, etc., conspired, this is the charge, conspired with other persons unknown to defraud the government of Guyana. And on this first one, they talk about him defrauding the government of Guyana of 8,365,455,000. And it says when he acted recklessly in presenting the value of a plot of state land situated at Plantation Goodvoacton. We know where that is on the East Coast where they live. And what they're saying is that he presented that the land was valued at $2,301,000
Mm-hmm.
when he sold that land to guess who? Barrett Jagdeo,
Hmm.
without first obtaining a valuation to determine the true value. And the charge was that the true value was $10,666,000, but he presented that plot of land to be valued only at $2 million, right?
Wow.
So that
Wow.
was one for Bar Jagdeo. And then the same kind of thing, and this one was for Priya Manik Chan, and
Mm-hmm.
they mentioned that the piece of land is now in the name of David Narai, and they say the same thing. Muhammad Irfan Ali to recklessly presenting the value of the land, and in the case of the land sold to Priya Manik Chan as $1,500,000, when the
Yeah.
said land, they say in this document, was valued at $9.6 million. Now, I want people to understand that this is a legal document that I am quoting from. This is
Yes.
not Kathy Hughes being malicious or anything. I am quoting from a legal public document that anybody can go to the courts and get a copy of, as I did. And so this these charges, as you know, mounted to
Mm-hmm.
19 charges, right?
Yeah.
The other names included are Sheikh Bash,
Mm-mm.
again, one, Mr. Irfan Ali said that it was valued at 1.1 million, $1.5 million when the land was valued at 7 million. And then we have another one for Lazita Ramatar. Again, he said it was valued at 1.7, and the DPP said it was valued at 7 million. And it goes on. It goes on to Roger Luncheon, same kind of thing, 1.5 million, but this one is valued at 6 million. It goes on to members of the private sector.
Hmm.
Here's one from Mr. Ramesh Duku. I'm quoting from this public document. And again, from someone named Kamini Parag Singh, a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting name. And there are 19 of these charges, right? Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting is that these charges were brought in 2010 by the same DPP today,
Wow.
right? So the DPP felt that there was strong enough evidence to lay a case. We know that this case was only thrown out when Muhammad Irfan Ali became the president. The president.
Yeah.
Now, the same that there are charges now that all those 19 charges did not prevent him from chairing the Public Accounts Committee. Would you believe that? And
Yeah.
the nonsense I'm hearing now, where a certain attorney general is saying that the problem is that David Patterson would be overseeing the period of his that he was actually serving as a government minister. What nonsense is that? The PPP were in power for 23 years, which means that Irfan Ali at the time would have been chair of the Public Accounts Committee that would be scrutinizing accounts for the same time that he was a government minister.
Yep.
So
Yep.
this is the stupidness. They think that we are so stupid. They think the people of Guyana are so stupid. The same DPP lays those charges, and the charges are only thrown out, right?
Yeah.
When he becomes
President.
president. David Patterson ain't got no charges to this extent,
Mm-mm.
none whatsoever. But but you decide that you don't want him as chair when, in history, in parliamentary practice, in Guyana's parliamentary practice, it's always chaired by a member of the main
Oppo-
opposition. It's in
Opposition.
the
Yeah.
standing orders, which is like the constitution for the operation of parliament. So that's to show you how they operate.
Yeah. We
So,
saw. We
what
also.
other reason? What would be the other reason that you would bring a case to remove David Patterson? We never did that with Mr. Irfan Ali because we know that the main opposition has the right to chair. And so
Yeah.
Mr. Irfan Ali was there doing his thing.
Yeah.
But all these things will come back to haunt us. It's a good point to just mention that at the meeting today, the Jermaine Figaro was
Yeah.
selected
Yeah.
as the chair on this occasion. And I'm happy to say that David Patterson is still on that committee.
Still on the committee.
And the people of Guyana will be able to benefit from his expertise.
Yeah.
Look at the
Yeah.
amount of blackouts we are getting now.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I went to a pipe in my yard yesterday and I jumped
Hmm.
because I turned on the pipe and it was rust water coming through. And I
Wow.
had forgotten what it is like to see rust water coming through a pipe.
Yeah. We happy. We happy, of course, that Mr. Figueroa is there and Mr. Patterson is still on that committee. And I
Yes,
like what he said, that the work of the PAC will be doubled. So the removal of Mr. Patterson is no victory, because we know that they don't like oversight and transparency and checks and balances. Uh,
absolutely.
Minister, I am hoping, because I'm following some of the comments on Facebook here, and
And you can't see
I
the
think
comments, so you'll have to
oh
tell me.
no, sorry. So I'm following some of the comments, and one person said, "Put the evidence on the internet, man. Put all of
Yes,
these charges that the fraudulent president would have been charged with on the internet. Let people see who he sold these land to."
absolutely.
Right.
Like I said, it's a public record, and I will be
Yeah.
placing it on my my Catherine Hughes MP page.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy, I
Mm-hmm.
will ask all the members of the APNU AFC to put it on
Share.
their
Share.
pages. I think
Share.
it's also on our page already, right?
Yes. If not, I'll ensure that it's up there on AP and UFC page so people can see and
Yes.
scrutinize. This
I'll,
is these are the people. These are the people who we sold to. Look at
yep.
them.
Yep. I will
Yeah.
put that. I will put them up on my page tonight.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely.
Yep.
We're happy to have this conversation. I'm telling you, we could have gone longer.
Yes.
Definitely, will have you back at another time to have these conversations with us. It was a pleasure, Minister. I will continue to call you Minister. Minister Cathy Hughes, now Honorable MP on the opposition benches. Thank you very much for talking some politics with us this
Thank you,
afternoon.
Randy. I want to thank the viewers for their support. We get a lot of messages. I know a lot of people are dissatisfied. It is sad because one of the things we need to talk about, Randy, is that National Resource Fund that was set up, a
Yeah,
committee of 20 people, private sector, government, opposition, civil society that could manage that fund. And I do think that parts fund some of the monies that we have acquired already from our oil industry. I know Kemrat says it's going to be close to 400 million US.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is money that should be used. Guyanese people should be demanding that that money is used to help all the folks that have lost their livestock, their land, some people, their homes in these terrible floods. I want people to be safe. I was vaccinated. Please take your
Mhm.
vaccine
Yeah,
and be safe and be careful because the various strains are really serious.
yeah.
Thank
We
you,
spoke.
Randy, for your time, and God bless everybody.
Thank you very much, Minister. Do enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank
Always
you.
happy to have you in the rush.
Thank you. Anytime.
Great. Thank you. That was former Minister of Public Telecommunications, Cathy Hughes, sharing with her views there with us. We want to thank her for being a part of the program. And we want to thank you for being a part of this program this afternoon. Do continue to stay safe, folks. I've told you it would have been a short program, and it is a short program. We're going to take our leave here today. We'll see you on Monday. On Sunday, I'm trying to bring us at an interview on my Sunday sit down, so look forward for that. But we'll see you on Monday. We do hope that you enjoy every minute of your weekend. Stay safe, and let's continue to work for national development, folks. My name is Randolph Pritchell. Do enjoy.